welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to show you how I make frozen cookie dough. So this came about last year when I'd come across a channel on YouTube called Old World Home, and she has, I believe, a whole calendar of like how to get ready for Christmas leading up to it. So I think it starts like weeks before December, and it goes through like a whole timeline. Like this week you should do this, and this week you should do this. And then her idea is to take the stress off the holiday. I've not gotten that guide. I really probably should. But one thing that I did take from her without even reading the guide is that I think 8 weeks before Christmas, she makes a bunch of frozen cookie dough. And so when she has like an event to go to where she needs something to bring, she'll just grab a few from the freezer and bake them up. And so you can serve fresh cookies like all month long without having to stress about throwing the dough together. So I haven't mastered doing that eight weeks in advance. So I usually, if I have a party to go to, or if I just have kind of more of a down day in December, then I will spend that day making cookie dough or get it ready for that party making cookie dough. And I'll just make a little extra and freeze the extra. And that's kind of how I go about it. So as I'm filming this intro, I have already made the chocolate chip cookie dough and it's in my freezer. I made that for a party I was going to. And then today, right now, I'm gonna make some Snickerdoodle cookies. They are my favorite cookies. I have never made them though. And I have a recipe that I'm gonna use, so hopefully it turns out. I have had this recipe before. Somebody made it for me. However, this recipe does call for shortening, and I do not have, nor do I want to buy shortening. So I looked it up online and it said there are a couple substitutions, none of which recommended butter, but that's what I'm gonna use today. It already calls for butter, so I'm just gonna use butter also in place of shortening. And I'm gonna whip this together and hope it turns out, because seriously, they were so good when these were brought to me and I tried them. So let's get to this Snickerdoodle dough, shall we?
So in this recipe, you start with mixing the butter, the eggs, the sugar, and the vanilla all together, and you cream it together until it's nice and creamy. And I did this with melted butter because I didn't have softened butter. I meant to take it out of the fridge and let it thaw, and I didn't. And that works just fine in my chocolate chip cookie dough, but it did make this dough rather soft, which I needed it a little bit more firm for rolling it in the cinnamon sugar mixture. It did turn out just fine, but note that if you were gonna make these. And then I'm mixing the dry ingredients together here, and then you're just gonna mix that into your wet ingredients or your sugar mixture and mix that until it forms your dough.
Obviously, I have to try this dough. So now they get rolled into balls and rolled in a cinnamon sugar mixture. And then I will put 1 or 2 in the oven to try, obviously. But the rest will go in the freezer. So that was actually much easier to put together than I thought for this one. I have not tried them yet, but they look like real Snickerdoodle. So they are not as like thick as the ones that my friends made for me. I'm assuming that is to do with the fact that I did not use shortening in here, but it still looks like a nice thick kind of cookie. I actually think it's cool enough. It's holding together enough that I could try it. So I think it's good. I'm not quite as overwhelmed by them as when my friends made them, but I would still make these again. that batch is in my freezer. I'm gonna enjoy this cookie and we'll move on to the next cookie recipe.
So like most cookie recipes call for, you're gonna mix the dry ingredients together first, which is all-purpose flour, baking soda, and salt. Super simple. The next step is to combine the butter and the sugars together. Now I've made this recipe a million times and I mixed up the mixtures for the brown sugar and the white sugar. So I put in way too much white sugar. So right now I'm just scooping some of that out. I kind of guesstimated what I needed to take out and it turned out still as good as ever. And then you would just mix those together until they're nice and creamy. I do it with melted butter and it works out perfect every time. Then you're gonna add 2 eggs and then you add vanilla. You mix that all together and then you slowly mix in your dry ingredients to this mixture. Once that's done, you're gonna mix in your chocolate chips to the dough. I moved it to a different bowl because I knew this bowl would give me more room to mix in my chocolate chips. And so that's literally the only reason I did it. If you have room in the bowl that you started in, just stick with that. It's totally fine. Last step I do with these chocolate chip cookies is to put some chocolate chips in the kind of bare spots that I see at the top, and then into the freezer they go, and now I'm just going to bag them up for long-term storage.
Alright, so for our final cookie recipe, I'm going to make pumpkin sourdough cookies. Now, I am going to use discard for this recipe, but I am also going to let it ferment for a long period of time, which technically this recipe doesn't call for, but if I'm going to make something sourdough, I'm going to make it long ferment. So let's get started.
So again, we're going to start with mixing the butter and the sugars together.
Now technically I was already supposed to add the dry ingredients together, so while this mixes, that's what I'm going to do.
Now I'm just adding the egg, the vanilla, and then I'm gonna add the pumpkin and the sourdough starter.
And this says blend until just combined. I'm pretty sure you want to be careful not to over blend this. So then it says to add the dry ingredients, but just mix it until just combined. And then I'm supposed to go into it with a silicone spatula or some kind of spoon and mix it by hand, just by folding it in. And I'm pretty sure that's because you don't want to overwork the starter, because we're not trying to turn this into bread. So we don't want that gluten super developed. So it says use a cookie scoop or a large tablespoon to scoop the batter out and put it onto a pan. And then you bake it at 350 for 15 to 20 minutes. Now it does also say if the batter seems runny or loose, and I would probably say mine is loose, I think, to chill it for 30 minutes before you bake it. I'm not gonna do that. I am, however, going to scoop it out onto the cookie sheet. I'm gonna chill it in the fridge I'm gonna let it chill in there for 24 hours because the fridge slows down the fermentation process, but it doesn't stop it completely. And I don't just want to leave this out on the counter to ferment. So I'm gonna chill it in there and then I'll flash freeze it tomorrow like I've done the other cookies, and then I'll put them into a bag and they'll be good to go. You won't see me putting it into a bag because I'm trying to get this video out tonight. Nothing like the last minute. But you will see me scoop it out and put it into the fridge to chill. These ones are going into bake. Those are going into bake. I will pop a little clip on the screen at the end of me tasting it, and I'll give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And that's it. This is a super helpful and convenient way for me to have cookies ready during the holiday season without stressing myself out. Although I'm not gonna lie, some of these recipes stressed me out because I was doing them for Vlogmas, not actually when I had time. But that's another story and not what we're talking about right now. The point is, do this early in the holiday season or do it as you have time and just freeze extras, and it does really help. Thanks, Old World Home. Not that I think she's watching me. She's a much bigger channel than me, but I really appreciate the tips from her, and I hope you enjoyed this Vlogmas day 9. Vlogmas day 9, wow. Okay, so this is my Vlogmas day 9, but I'm aware that this should be day 11. I left it in here because this weekend got really busy, and I think that's real life. So thanks for watching my Vlogmas day 9, y'all. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you come back tomorrow. Let me know down in the comments which cookie recipe is your favorite, because I get kind of stuck on the same old sugar cookie chocolate chip, and some new ideas might be kind of fun. So thanks for joining, thanks for engaging, like, subscribe, do all the things, and have a good night. This recipe does call for a powdered sugar glaze. Obviously, I'll have the recipe linked down below, so you'll see it in that recipe, but no, I did not do it. Anyway, good night.